They Came Before Columbus by Ivan Van Sertima. The major theme and argument of this book is the overwhelming Negroid presence within the culture and artifacts recovered from Mesoamerica. The term Negroid is defined by one source as having a broad and flat nose, very short, a large, flattened mouth, thick lips, while the Cambridge University Dictionary defines Negroid as having the physical features of a black person from Africa. The picture displayed shows examples of the various phenotypes of African people. So the first 3 chapters are about the Guinea route and African contact with the New World. So chapter 1 begins with an examination of the Christopher Columbus journals. Returning from Spain from a successful expedition of the New World, he stops in Portugal against King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella's order to have dinner with Don Juan, who was the king of Portugal. Don Juan was envious of Christopher Columbus's successful expedition, as he was told by maritime Africans about a secret route to the Americas from the western coast of Guinea. In 1496, while in Hispaniola, which we call Haiti, in the Dominican Republic, Indians told Columbus about black merchants who traded spears made with tips, which they called Ghana, which is gold. It wouldn't be until May 30th, 1498 when Columbus explored the secret route to the Americas and landed in Brazil. So then chapter 2 is The Visible Witness, which is a prologue to the remaining chapters of the book. It discusses the 1500 Spanish contact with blacks in ancient Panama, the discovery of the Olmec heads in Central America, the African influence on the gods of the Aztecs, marriages between American Indians and Africans, and the Negro-Egyptian contact. Chapter 3 focuses on the mariner prince of Mali. So this king, Abubakari Musa, had an expedition to the Americas in 1311. He learned about a powerful current in the universities of Timbuktu that would take passengers from the coast of Guinea to the Americas. So in 1311 AD, he took a caravan including hundreds of men and women on a journey to the New World, never to be heard from again. So on this slide, I have a picture of that powerful current that leaves Mali, and it actually takes you either to Middle America or Central America. Now this slide is entitled Black Kings, Queens, and Gods, and the chapters that are subsequent are 6, 7, and 8. Chapter 6 starts off with the Mandingo traders in medieval Mexico. The Mandingo was a tribe in Africa, a member of the Malian Empire. And around 1407, it said that a merchant caste from the Hotlands came among the Aztec nobles, and they described their skins as black as the sheen of ocelots. After growing into a sizable camp, the Mandingos had built a temple in Mexico, married native women, fused their culture with American Indians, and were made into the images of gods. So above, we have a Mandingo head in the 14th century Mexico. This was made by the Mixtecs. Chapter 7 focuses on Black Africa and Egypt, and how the Hermetic hypothesis led to a racialized caste of the Black Africans being a servant class. The Hermetic hypothesis suggests that the curse of the son of Ham was the curse of blackness. Christian theologians suggested that the curse was on his son Canaan, the black race. Meanwhile, his son Mizraim had not been cursed. Therefore, the Caucasoid Egyptians were assumed the civilizers of Egypt. The author reviews archaeological evidence that proves that Negroes or blacks were Egyptians as early as 4500 BC, and the split of Egypt into two divisions, Upper and Lower Egypt, didn't occur until a mulatto class of Asian African mixture emerged only until 3400 BC. So chapter 8 focuses on the black kings of the 25th dynasty and the untold stories of the Nubian Negro Egyptian kings and queens and their everlasting impact on Egyptian culture. In the 25th dynastic period, that's from 751 to about 654 BC, the black Nubian kings of Kush restored Egypt to its former glory, unifying Upper and Lower Egypt. Upper Egypt was at war with the Syrians. King Taharka in about 688 BC won a battle over the Syrians, and he began renovating the temples and restored the worship of the sun god Amon-Ra. Subsequently, they adopted the sun disk symbol, which is found in Central and South America. The author also describes how the Phoenicians became the mercenary seamen of the Egyptians during this time period. And among the Negroid stoneheads found in Gulf of Mexico, there are indicators of Phoenician phenotypes. So on this slide, we got some of the kings and queens of the 25th dynastic period. From left, that is Pharaoh or King Taharka, and then in the middle, right beside him, we got Amenhotep III. Beside Amenhotep, on the far right, we have Queen Taya, and that is actually in Berlin, Germany, in a museum. At the bottom left, this is a 19th century painting of Noah damming Ham. This slide covers chapter 4, 5, and 9, and I grouped them in that way because these chapters specifically speaks on the African Mesoamerican influence. And chapter 4 focuses on the advanced maritime affairs of ancient Africa. So the author recovers artifacts about African ships that were 170 feet long, the 13th century records of Swahili shipping an elephant to the Emperor of China, and the black Californian Swahilis who took a Pacific current known as the Black Stream from the Indian Ocean to North America. The author then juxtaposes the accepted history of Mongols from Asia crossing into the continental America by a land bridge 40,000 years ago, but reappeared 25,000 years ago, allowing more migrants from Asia. And he posits that it's accepted that in total isolation from the rest of the world, the American Indians developed their culture independently until Columbus came. Chapter 5 is about the Quetzalcoatlus and their African influence on the Aztec gods. So Quetzalcoatl was the name given as an honorific title to two high priests of the Tenochtitlan in Mexico in memory of the god of civilization and learning. The Quetzalcoatl Mexican Valley documents always pictured the Quetzalcoatl as black bearded and with a black painted face. So you can see it in this picture on the bottom right, depiction of the Quetzalcoatl. Chapter 9 discusses African Egyptian presence in ancient America and keys on the Olmecs. So the top left and bottom left pictures are Olmec sculptures, And the Olmecs were people of three faces: Mongoloid, Negroid, and Mediterranean Caucasoid, which the author notes as probably being Phoenician. There were 11 Negroid stone heads discovered in the Olmec world, which all were facing the eastern direction, and these were carbon dated back to 800 BC to 690 BC. The chapter provides commentary about why scholars failed to include these artifacts in American history, as well as the author notes that the helmets of the Olmecs were Egyptian, and theorizes that the emergence of these Olmec heads were an extension of the 25th dynastic Negro-Egyptian kings whom secured the Phoenicians as their merchant seamen. And this chapter also reviews the mummification process and how it started in Egypt and expanded to North, Middle, and South America during pre-Columbian times. In the top right is also a boat. This boat is from an Egyptian pharaoh's tomb. So then the last chapters 10, 11, and 12 discusses agricultural and cultural influences. Certain plants were transferred, and one of the plants that they focused heavily on was cotton. But cotton had already grown in America, but there was two strands of cotton, and the author reviews the hypothesis of how the African strand of cotton existed in America during pre-Columbian times, and reviewed research that indicated seeds were able to float across the Atlantic Ocean, but findings of the research suggested that that was not possible, that the seeds would have in fact died during that transmission period. The Arabs introduced the banana to Africa, and bananas were in America prior to Christopher Columbus's discovery of America. Chapter 11 focuses on tobacco, smoking, and pipes of African and American culture. Tobacco was introduced to the Spanish by Moors, who taught them about the medicinal uses. Then tobacco became source of pleasure and meditation amongst the Africans. In pre-Columbian times, the Native Americans borrowed the Arab word of tobacco to signify smoking the plant itself, because they had already had a word for tobacco in their native tongue. So it focuses on this relationship of the smoking pipes in America were very, very identical to what is found in Africa. And the last chapter focuses on the mystery of Malenpu or Malenpi, and Malenpi is translated to land reached by great ships. So there were Chinese documents on the 12th and 13th century that claimed Chinese and Arabs traded with Malenpi during the Middle Ages, and there were accounts reported by Nubian geographers about Arab ships trading in the Atlantic islands as far back as the 10th century. This book was a very great book, and it provides a different perspective on the way that we view American history.